This week on Mill Street, it's a trip to Istanbul. We start with a meaty version of Turkish beans. Then we do a really simple, delicious midweek Turkish red lentil soup. And finally, we end up with the Turkish version of shakshuka. It's menemen, which is scrambled eggs with sauteed peppers, feta, and tomatoes on top. So stay tuned for Istanbul favorites right here on Mill Street.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Ferguson's proud to support Milk Street and culinary crusaders everywhere. For more information on our extensive collection of kitchen products, we're on the web at fergusonshowrooms.com.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect. We offer a variety of no-contract plans, and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Cooking happens in the kitchen, but life happens around the kitchen table. The 1919 collection, celebrating yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Visit us at www.1919cookware.com.
There's nothing new about beans or bean stews around the world. Brazil has black bean stews, fava bean stews in Egypt. Of course, the cassoulet, they actually have, I think they have an Academy of Cassoulet, of course, in France. We have baked beans here in New England, but in Turkey, they have a really interesting notion. Beans, tomatoes, sometimes a little hot chili pepper or sauce, and meat in it as well. It's a whole meal.
Yep.
It's easy to make, and I actually had this, oddly enough, in Vermont. There's a Turkish cook in Vermont who makes it. It's really terrific. So we thought it's simple, it's a whole meal, why not?
Exactly, why not? And it is the easiest bean dish I've ever made. It's traditionally a very comforting home dish found in buffet-style workmen's restaurants called lokantas, which you find throughout Istanbul. But we knew in order to make the best rendition of it here, we would have to start with dried beans. The dried beans...
You don't have to say that to me like that's a problem, because you wouldn't want to use canned beans for something that's essentially a bean stew.
You're absolutely right. I love dried beans. In this recipe, the traditional bean from Turkey is a white bean about the size of a lima, and it's really hard to find here. But what we found was the best substitute were cannellini beans, because they have a thicker skin on them. Great Northerns work as well.
Okay.
So when you're shopping for dried beans, you want to look for a bean that has a shiny, smooth skin on it. Not a bean that is peeling.
Dry and wrinkled looking.
Yes, not a dry and wrinkled bean. Believe it or not, it's hard to think of dried beans as being fresh, but even dried beans get old. And what we do with the dried beans is we soak them overnight in cold water, which has salt in it. And what the salt does as the beans absorb the water is it seasons the beans, and it helps to tenderize the beans before they actually start cooking.
So how much was it, 2 tablespoons of salt? Or?
It is 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt to 3 quarts of cold water.
Okay.
For the meat, the traditional is a lamb shank. Shanks are very inexpensive cuts of meat, which are really meant to be braised, for a long time.
So it's the lower leg?
Lower leg, the lower rear leg, actually. And this is a lamb, so you can get a good-sized piece of the shank. But what we're using here, because it's more popular, is beef shank. It's also less expensive here to buy beef than it is to buy lamb. So, because a cow is a lot bigger than a lamb, you get a cross-cut pieces of the beef shank. But you get that gorgeous bone with the marrow. This inside here is soft, and that adds a lot of gelatin to the broth, which enriches it and gives it a lot of flavor too.
Okay.
We're gonna add the soaked beans to the pot. They've been drained, and now we're gonna add fresh water.
That was excellent technique, by the way.
Oh, I'm just started. So we have 5.5 cups of fresh water. Then onions. You notice something we did not do to the onions?
We did not saute them.
We did not. Surprise ingredient, 4 tablespoons of salted butter.
That's interesting.
That's about 1/2 stick. Our lovely garlic cloves, which have just been smashed, and there are 8 of them. Then for herbs, your favorite thyme sprigs, and a couple of bay leaves. For flavor, a little bit of paprika, teaspoon, and a teaspoon of red chili flakes. Just adds just a touch of heat to it. Guess what else we're not doing?
We're not browning the meat first.
You know, this is an amazingly simple recipe. The beans are going to braise in the oven, but prior to that, we're going to bring them to the boil on the stovetop so that when they go into the oven, they're already at a simmer.
So if you don't bring it up to a simmer first and then put it in the oven, it takes forever to get this up to simmer in the oven. So this will save a lot of time.
Right.
So how long and what temperature?
It's going to go in at 325 for an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
So Chris, this just came out of the oven. It's been in for an hour and 15 minutes, but it's only halfway through. We have a little more to do. You can see, yes. Okay, put that there. What we are going to do is add the traditional tomatoes to this, but we're adding it in a slightly different form. In Turkey, they use their version of tomato paste, which is bright red, pulpy, and more on the salty side than on the sweet side. And that's very different than our tomato paste here. And when we tried that with our tomato paste, it just made the mixture sort of muddy, and it didn't add a lot in terms of flavor. So our solution was to use canned diced tomatoes, which offer more acidity than sweetness. And they're pulpy, too. We're also going to take this chance to add a little bit of salt. This is 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Give that a little stir. And then we're going to put the cover back on, back in the oven at 325. It stays at the same temperature for another hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we have a lovely hour and 15 minutes to make the pickled tomatoes. The reason we're making pickled tomatoes is because traditionally this dish is served with pickled vegetables, but we have the tomatoes in the beans, and we thought pickled tomatoes would be great to put on top. And I have to be honest with you, I was a little skeptical, but I tried the pickled tomatoes, and I'm never putting anything else on these beans. The tomatoes do need to be seeded and cored, so we're going to do this nifty little method of doing this. So top and tail, cut them in half, and then on their side, just cut it right off.
And be careful to remove your fingers before you cut all the way through.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, beautifully sharp knives. There.
I like that.
These tomatoes are used for garnish, so we want about a 1/4 inch dice on them. So you want to cut 1/4 inch strips, and then cut crosswise about another 1/4 inch. And you get these perfect little 1/4 inch squares. We have the tomatoes, and now we're going to add 3 tablespoons of cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of chopped dill, 1 teaspoon of Aleppo pepper. We have a teaspoon of sugar and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So you've got that sweetness from the sugar, the tanginess from the vinegar, a little bit of salt, the dill, the pepper flakes, and it's an extraordinary pickled tomato. So this is what's known as a fresh pickle. It's not meant to last for days and days in the fridge. It just needs about an hour, which means it'll be ready when the beans are ready. And we're going to put it in the fridge now. So Chris, our beans are out of the oven after cooking for 2.5 hours, and we have removed the beef shank, letting the beans sit for 20 minutes. The shank is cool enough now to handle. We've also taken out the thyme sprigs and the bay leaves, because those are not edible. So I'm pulling it off the bone by hand because, you know, there are little pieces of gristle in there, and you're able to feel it and pull them apart pretty easily. You can see that the meat is very tender. And then we're going to chop this and add it back into the soup. Look, the marrow is all gone. All that good gelatin from it is now in that broth.
Oh, I thought you meant you ate it when my back was turned. Hey, it's gone.
You know, it's not a lot of meat for this amount of beans, but that is traditional. You just want a little bit. So we're just going to chop this roughly. This is a really humble workman's meal.
Guess humble leaves me out.
You appreciate it, though.
No, I do love this kind of food.
We wanted to add a little bit of complexity here, so we're going to add a 1/2 cup of chopped parsley and 2 tablespoons of chopped dill. And then finally, for a little bit of a tangy sweetness, we're going to add pomegranate molasses. Now, this is a staple in Turkish kitchens, so it's really not that far of a stretch.
You know, in the last few years, you can find pomegranate molasses, even in Vermont. You can find it really in any supermarket now.
Right.
Okay, we ready?
We are. I'm looking at this because it looks so good.
There you are.
Ah, thank you. So these pickled tomatoes we made are incredible with this. There you go. And we have the option of a little dollop of yogurt as well, and a little more fresh dill for those heady herbs that you like.
Oh, man.
You can imagine these beans would just be amazing as they are, but add those tomatoes and it's just ridiculous.
This is one of the absolute best recipes this season. How do I say this? The pickled tomatoes, the dill, the little pomegranate molasses, the meat, the beans. The beans are creamy and incredibly soft. You know, baked beans, like American baked beans, are sort of Johnny one note.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, Johnny 9 note. This has a lot of notes. And it's, you just throw everything in the pot and cook it. Everything is really easy. So Turkish beans from Mill Street, these are easy to do. They have lots of flavor in them. And it's something you would make on a Sunday and you could like eat the rest of the week and maybe put an egg on top if you want Monday night. A terrific recipe, simple, and the best beans in the world. Now it's time for our most popular Tuesday night supper of all time. It's a Turkish red lentil soup. There are two other things I love about this. It's about water, because we don't use stock, we use water. And there's also a technique at the end with a drizzle of a spiced oil, which is used all the time in Indian home cooking as well, which is a great technique. So with that fabulous introduction, how do we make it?
Chris, this is a simple and robust one-pot meal that's very, very simple to make. It all starts out with 3 tablespoons of salted butter that have melted, and once that butter stops foaming, we introduce about a cup of diced onion. And we cook that onion for about 5 minutes over medium heat until it softens. Once it's softened, we could introduce our garlic. Here we have 1 grated clove of garlic. We'll cook that until it is aromatic, and that should only take about 30 seconds. So we'll give that a stir to encourage its cooking. And then to that, we'll go ahead and add in our 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, followed by 1 tablespoon of sweet paprika. And this is going to give this dish a very, very bright color. And then we'll close that out with half a teaspoon of ground cumin. We'll give this a stir just to make sure that all of the onions are coated in that tomato paste as well as those spices. And you could already see the color has changed dramatically. Now that that is all well combined, we'll introduce our cup of red lentils. Now these red lentils will soften and break down as they cook in
Why
the
don't they
soup.
call them orange lentils?
You know,
They always say red lentils, and you go to the market, and they're orange lentils. What? They're pastel lentils.
well, maybe they were colorblind and nobody decided to
Maybe
tell
at
them
one
different.
time they were red. In any case, they break down.
Perhaps. They definitely break down and give a nice thick body to this soup. And we're also going to add in 2 tablespoons of long grain white rice. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot. Do not be tempted to increase the amount. This gives us a really pleasant texture to the soup, and we would miss it if it wasn't in there. We have 1.5 teaspoons of salt.
This is kosher salt.
Kosher salt. Yeah. And now that that's in there, give everything a little bit of a toss. And now we'll add in about 5 cups of water. Sounds like a lot, but all of these pulses and grains are going to absorb all of that liquid and give it a really, really velvety texture.
Now, when you say pulses, I just say that's sort of a European term for things like lentils, right? Because no one here knows what that means.
No, you're absolutely right. We're going to bring this combination to a boil and then cover it and bring it down to a simmer and allow it to cook for about 30 minutes. Now, while that's cooking, we can take a look at something that will top this soup off with, which is an Aleppo pepper oil. To a medium skillet set over medium-high heat, we've added in 3 tablespoons of olive oil. We'll add in 2 teaspoons of Aleppo pepper. Now, Aleppo pepper is a very, very vibrant pepper that doesn't give off a lot of heat, but it does give you a really bright color.
So what if I go to the pantry and I'm fresh out of Aleppo pepper, then what do I do?
Well, you could always order Aleppo pepper online, but if you're fresh out of Aleppo pepper, you could certainly add in 1 teaspoon of paprika, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of red chili flake.
Okay.
That way you get that little bit of heat and you still maintain that bright color. So we've added those 2 teaspoons of Aleppo pepper to the olive oil that's heating in this pan, and as you can see, just in the little bit of time that it's been cooking, it's already infusing this oil with not only its flavor, but again, its color.
Yeah, I can smell it.
Yeah, you could certainly smell it. And we're really only going to cook this down until it stops foaming. We noticed that the oil took on the color of the Aleppo pepper, so at that point, we could remove it from heat. We don't want to burn the Aleppo pepper flakes, as that will cause this oil to become bitter, and that's not what we're looking for. But the residual heat from that oil will allow that infusion to continue, so that way we get all of the flavor we're looking for. So our Turkish red lentil soup has been simmering for about 30 minutes. So notice that all of the red lentils have broken down, and you notice the little bits of rice going throughout it. Otherwise, it would be a little too watery. And actually, the other part of this recipe that we really enjoyed is how clear the flavors come through. Typically,
But you know what? I'll never know unless you give me a bowl of it.
all right, that being said,
Let's
go ahead.
That's what we want to do here, is eat it. I admit it does look good.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. It's such a quick and easy dish that it's hard not to do. So this dish can be made very easily vegan simply by switching out the butter at the very beginning with olive oil, and that's all you have to do. So let me go ahead and dress these up a little bit with some of the Aleppo pepper oil that we worked so hard to create.
You mean in 3 minutes?
Yeah, in 3 minutes, that's honestly all it took. And if you could spend 3 minutes to dress up your dish, you could wow everyone that comes over. Now, aside from that Aleppo pepper oil, which does have that little bit of heat, I want to give just a little bit of cooling with this chopped mint. And if you prefer a little bit more brightness for this soup, you could always add a little bit of lemon.
Because I'm such a bright and happy person all the
Absolutely.
time. That's right. So I guess I need a little lemon here. It's like,
Fair
okay,
enough.
yeah, fair enough. Great.
All right. And aside from that, we are good to go.
Oh. Wow. And this is, as I said, this is our most popular Tuesday night supper because it's so simple.
It really is.
It's simple, but you get a complex soup with a nice drizzle of the Aleppo oil at the end.
Make sure the Aleppo pepper oil doesn't hit the back of your throat. Otherwise, you'll get all the heat.
That just happened to him.
Maybe.
You didn't take your own advice, did you? So next time you want a really delicious Tuesday night supper, this is our favorite recipe overall for something quick. Turkish red lentil soup with a drizzle of Aleppo oil at the end. You just can't beat it. You know, everyone's heard of shakshuka, right? I mean, everybody, even in Vermont. Tomatoes, onions, peppers cooked down, and you poach some eggs in that sauce and have it for breakfast or for dinner. But you may not have heard of Turkish scrambled eggs. And how do you pronounce it?
Menemen.
I always ask you for pronunciation. It's very similar, except that you don't actually poach the eggs. You essentially scramble them. So some pepper in this, lots of other flavors, and it makes a great supper or it makes a great breakfast.
So Turkish scrambled eggs is one of our favorite recipes here. It's quick, it's a full meal, and we're borrowing all the flavors from Turkey, but making this lighter and faster. So to start, Chris, I'm going to heat some oil on medium, and I have 2 tablespoons here of olive oil as we start making our pepper mixture. And while that heats, let me tell you about these peppers. We are using Mexican poblano chilies for this recipe. They approximate the flavor of sivri biber, which is the traditional Turkish pepper used in this recipe, but these are much easier to find. So I have 2 poblano chilies here that are finely chopped. And then I'm going to add 1 bunch of scallions that have been finely sliced, and 3 cloves of minced garlic. And then here's the other key ingredient. This is Aleppo pepper. I have 1 tablespoon of Aleppo pepper here, which gives it a really authentic Turkish flavor. However, if we don't have Aleppo pepper, you can use 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And then I have a ½ teaspoon each of salt.
Kosher salt,
And white pepper. So this is our pepper mixture, and it's going to cook down for 6 to 8 minutes till the peppers are softened. So I'll give this a quick stir, and then we're going to cover and let it cook. So there's a couple different kinds of peppers going on here, which is really what makes this recipe unique.
3 of them here, it's so interesting that we've used in the European tradition salt and pepper. I often say they should get a divorce because pepper is so different than salt. And we use just a telecherry or just a basic black peppercorn. But the rest of the world has more choices. Aleppo, this is Aleppo. It's fruity. It's a fairly clean taste. It's really not very smoky. It's a lot more interesting than traditional black pepper. Marash pepper, something most people haven't tried. It's got a lot more smoke to it than Aleppo. I think it's more interesting overall. If you can get that, you can use that in this recipe. And then maybe one of my favorite peppers of all, Urfa pepper, URFA. This has a really smoky, rich, sometimes a licorice taste to it. It's very rich. It's really great when you're cooking down onions, for example, for a dish. So once again, Aleppo pepper is bright and sort of fruity, and Mirage pepper is a little smokier, and Urfa is the smokiest and darkest of them all.
All right, so it's been about 7 minutes, Chris, and our peppers are softened. So I'm going to transfer this to a bowl. And then to add some brightness and freshness, I'm adding 1 plum tomato that's been cored and chopped fine. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of capers that have been drained. And they'll add some lovely brininess. So our pepper mixture gets mixed up. In the original recipe, the eggs would have gone into this pepper mixture and scrambled straight into the pan, but this is a little bit easier. And now we'll move to our eggs. So I have 8 eggs here, and I'm going to add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I want to make sure these are whisked really well. So while I'm whisking the eggs, Chris, would you help by wiping out the...
You mean doing the dishes?
Do the dishes, wipe out the pan, and turn the heat back on to medium. And if you can get our next 2 tablespoons of olive oil heating, that would be wonderful. Okay, our eggs are whisked. So our oil is pretty hot. We like to use olive oil instead of butter. It gets fluffy, light eggs. So I'm going to pour the eggs right into the center of the pan. And then this is just a minute to a minute and a half. I want to stir this very quickly with a silicone spatula, bringing in the cooked edges from the outside into the center. I really like this as a Friday night recipe even after a long week. It's quick, it's easy, it's very nutritious and filling. My whole family loves this recipe. So we're looking to get the curds wet, soft, and shiny. This is just about done because they're going to keep cooking. So I've turned off the heat and I'm going to put this straight into our plates. And we like to use warmed plates so that the eggs don't cool too quickly. So we're going to top this with our pepper mixture. Here, I'll trade you.
Okay.
Thank you. And we're going to finish it with some feta cheese. Lovely and crumbly and salty and creamy. And a hefty sprinkle of chopped dill, which adds some wonderful fresh herb flavor. And a final flourish of some extra virgin olive oil for a little richness.
Is that what it's called? Is that a flourish?
It is
I
a
didn't know.
flourish.
Now that looks, well, actually, it looks like dinner.
It is
actually.
dinner
Yeah.
on a plate. It's definitely very fancy scrambled eggs.
This is much lighter and brighter than shakshuka. I mean, not that I don't love that too, but.
It's very different, so they're not the same thing, even though the base ingredients and the technique is not dissimilar. But you have poached eggs there, and these are scrambled. And traditionally, this is eaten with a couple of different kinds of bread, Turkish bread called simit or gunluk. I'm happy with a fork.
We're just going to have you stand up now and just pronounce everything in the culinary world from Japan all the way to Mexico, because you do it so well. You just embarrass me, because I can't do it as well as you can. So this is not shakshuka. This is Turkish scrambled eggs. Of course, it's scrambled, not poached. But it has a really interesting group of ingredients: feta cheese, capers, sauteed peppers, and of course, tomatoes. So it has briny, little smoky pepper as well. It's got almost everything going on. It's great for breakfast, but it's also great for supper. You can get this recipe. It's Turkish scrambled eggs, and all the recipes from this season of Milk Street at milkstreettv.com.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Ferguson's proud to support Milk Street and culinary crusaders everywhere. For more information on our extensive collection of kitchen products, we're on the web at fergusonshowrooms.com.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular has been offering no-contract wireless plans designed to help people do more of what they like. Our U.S.-based customer service team can help find a plan that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Cooking happens in the kitchen, but life happens around the kitchen table. The 1919 collection, celebrating yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Visit us at www.1919cookware.com.